Hi everybody, it's Tahir here from aerobic Permaculture Farm, and I'm standing in front of one of our aerobic compost toilets on a cool early autumn day. So in this video we are going to take a look at how to design and build these highly effective aerobic compost toilets, and we've been building and using them for years. And through the work I've done, I consider these to be the most effective compost toilet I've ever encountered, used, seen. And we will go into exactly why that is. And so you will see how simple they are, how cheap they are to build. And there's very, very little interaction with them. You're not engaging with the humanure at all until it's composted. There's no smells, it doesn't get into the ground, there's no potential of contaminating the groundwater. They're just a really clever, easy, elegant design, and really embodies the essence of permaculture design. Alright, so let's get into it. Alright, so we've got quite a few of these on our farm, and this one is at our staff quarters. It's a good example, so I'm going to start with it because it's pretty classic. And what we've got to look and understand about compost toilets is why they are so effective and essential, because we know that 8 billion people on this planet, they go into the toilet at least once a day, but most likely on average 2 to 3 times. And so if you look at that and put it together, it's a massive amount of humanure and urine, most of which is completely unused. There are some countries where people have traditionally been processing humanure for centuries and putting it onto the agricultural fields, but mostly it goes into either sewage treatment works, and the outflow of that sewage treatment is often into the ocean or into the rivers, and in some cases it's recycled back into drinking water, and in rare cases the remaining humanure material is actually made into a form of compost. But the vast majority of it ends up going raw into the oceans and into our rivers and causing a massive pollution problem. Yet we have a massive opportunity that has just been wasted. Humanure is very, very potent from a nutrient point of view, and if it can be processed properly, it can provide a huge amount of compost into urban gardens, farming systems, you name it. And there are many different ways of doing it, and what we're going to look at is a very, very simple way that you can do it on your own, using very simple materials, very cheaply, cheaper than putting in a toilet with a septic tank, because that tends to be the issue that I find with off-grid properties, is they use septic tanks. Now, septic tanks are terrible things because the manure is not reused. It sits there in the ground. Often these tanks leak, and every now and then you've got to bring in a municipal truck to extract the stuff at cost. So it really is a stupid way of doing things. Biogas digesters are excellent, but they're only useful where there's a lot of people using the toilet. But this particular design that we're going to look into now is ideal for 1, 2, 3, 4, up to, there is a limit in size, both small and large, but ideal for the family unit. We use them for course accommodation units where we have up to 20 people. And the design I'm looking at is probably ideal for around 4 to 6 people. But anyway, let's start by looking at what it actually is. So here you can see the building. It's quite tall and narrow, okay, and it consists of two basic components. It's got a base component, which you can see here where the two doors are, and we'll actually go and have a look at that base component on its own because we're busy building a compost toilet at the moment, and you will see how it works. And we will go and look at a compost toilet where we've opened one of the bins to extract the manure, and you can see what's happening inside. But basically you've got a base where the humanure goes into, and we use it until it fills up, and then when it's filled up we close it up and we let it sit for at least 6 months to finish its decomposition, and then you will move to the next one and use that until it fills up. In my experience, a family of 4 probably takes about 2 years to fill one of these bins up because the humanure is decomposing all the time. It's an aerobic composting process, means it's like a hot composting process like you would make in an aerobic compost heap, and there's a way this building is designed that enables that to happen. And if you don't get it right, it doesn't work. So it's very important to do it properly. Then you have a top structure. Okay, so this is actually where you go in, all right? And in most cases, you will have to climb up into it. So we've got some stairs, and we go up, there's a door, and in we go. And we have a room. We like to keep it nice and open and ventilated. So, in our climate, we don't need to put windows in. And then we like squat toilets, so we have squat plates. And that is because squatting is a much healthier way of using the toilet. There's no contact, it's healthier for your body, it's cleaner, it's generally a much better system than the Western sit-down flush toilet, which is really just a convenience item, but it's not a great system, it's unhygienic. And worst of all, it's in the house. And, so this is sitting next to the staff quarters, and all our compost toilets are outdoor because we don't believe in putting something like that in the building. Toilets are unclean and energetically unclean, and there are various different systems around the world where people look at them, and, you can look at them from the perspective of energetics, like in Feng Shui, where having a toilet inside is not a great idea. It's a dirty energy. If you just look at it simply from a hygienic point of view, putting a toilet en suite is like the stupidest thing you can do, because you're having a waste disposal system in your bedroom. It's absolute insanity. So we have them nearby. They can be attached to the building, but it's very important that they're not enclosed in the building. And I think it's healthy to take a little stroll to go use the toilet. Westerners have got into this convenience, lazy culture where everything's just at a button or a step away. And you look at the condition of the Western population, they can hardly be called healthy, or a prime example of how humans should be living in terms of best practice on this planet. So let's go and take a look at the mechanism of this toilet, how it works, and then we'll just go through it step by step and into the building process as well. Okay, this is a compost toilet, same design, located in our training area, and it serves our accommodation unit and temporary campsite. And this one is particularly useful because we can actually see how it works. So the principle of aerobic composting is that whatever your compost heap is made out of, whether it's animal manure, human manure, that it's layered with manure straw. So you have your carboniferous material to buffer the nitrogen in the manure and to provide a carbon content in the manure. And that heap heats up because the heap has moisture and it has oxygen, and that allows the composting microorganism process, fungi and bacteria, to function, and that generates heat, and that heat actually sterilizes the heap from pathogens, and it is a byproduct of the metabolism of the compost heap. So generally what will happen with an aerobic compost heap, you'll have to keep turning it every few days to keep it oxygenated. So how do we do this in a compost toilet? Well, it's actually very simple. So what it consists of, let's look at this bin. It consists of a bin which must be at least 1 cube, because Any smaller than that, the heaps can't really retain the heat properly, once they're fully made. This particular system, it starts composting pretty quickly once you get the floor of the bin covered. And how it works is that this particular bin, okay, is 1.5 meters deep. So we'll go on to this side where you can see it a bit better. So it's 1.5 meters deep, and the two bin structure is 3 meters, well, just under, 3 meters with the plaster, but it's about 2.8. We'll go into those dimensions when we show the build. And so each bin is roughly inside a meter 0.23 deep and a meter high. All right. Then what you have is a bedding of straw that sits on a shade cloth net which sits on bread crates. Okay, now those bread crates make sure that the bedding of straw is not sitting on the floor and that there's an air gap underneath, right? And so what happens is you have a lintel here right the way across the toilet, and that the top of the lintel is the height of the top of the bread crates, and then the bread crates create this space underneath, and we've got a vent system here. Okay, now this vent system, it's got a wooden frame with chicken wire to stop rodents getting in, and then on top of that we've got 80% shade cloth to stop insects and flies going in. And so that is where air gets pulled into the composting system, because basically you will have a door on the front. All right, now these doors are made out of new tech. It's a light composite material, and they are placed over here once we're ready to go, because we've just emptied this out and we've just got some bolts in the wall to stop them pushing right in, and then we seal the door off. And the seal is just some very light mix concrete that we put on to hold the door in place and to prevent air getting sucked in around the door. It's very important that the only way air enters the bin is through the bottom. So through here, it has to be sealed off. All right. And then what happens is, what sucks the air in? Okay, because this is how we keep the humanure pile aerated. So what pulls the air in underneath and through the heap is a vent pipe, which we put at the far back corner of the bin. It has to be there, because if it's not there, it's not going to draw air up through the compost heap, because this door is totally sealed. And the toilet hole above, whether it's sit down or squat toilet, and we'll get into that just now, is totally sealed. The only way air can move through and out of the system is through the vent pipe. So you can see there it is, and it's 125 millimeter PVC irrigation pipe. We'll go and have a look at another toilet where you can get a better view of it, because this one is sitting underneath a large car apple, but you can see it going up there. And what happens is that once the process starts in the toilet, that vent pipe is generally painted black or grey, which heats it up, and it creates a pressure difference between the bin and the outlet of the pipe, and it starts to draw air in underneath the manure heap, through the manure heap, and out the vent pipe. That's why it's very important that the bin is sealed, and that's what keeps the heap aerated. And then sitting underneath here, it's not a concrete base, it's actually a French drain, and we'll have a look at that now. So we dig down about 30 to 50 centimeters, depending on the soil type, and we fill it with gravel. And that's where the excess urine will drain away until the manure heap gets large enough, and that absorbs all the urine. And the urine is the energy, it's the nitrogen input into the heap that keeps it hot, along with the oxygenation. So it's a very simple, clever system, and we'll look at what the bin is made of. So this particular compost toilet's got a wooden top to it. That can be anything. You can make a cob, an adobe, you can even have a shade cloth top structure. The top structure is not so important to the design of the toilet. It's the base and the vent pipe. So let's go and have a look on another toilet, and you can see this a bit clearer. Here we are looking at our own home compost toilet. Same design to the others. It's attached to our house, but it's outside. You go out onto the porch and in to the toilet, and you can see the two vent pipes, and they are basically about 4 meters from the floor of the toilet. And you'll notice there's some shade netting tied at the top, and that's to basically, if any flies manage to get into the system, then their natural tendency is to fly up the chimney to the light. And what basically will happen is that they'll hit the netting and they won't be able to get out, and they die and they fall in. And so there's never an issue with flies in these toilets, and there's never an issue with smell, because a properly decomposing aerobic compost heap does not really stink. Alright, and so when you open the doors to use the toilet, it's generally warm and it doesn't smell. Any smells that you do have go out the top of the pipe and disappear. Okay, so we'll have a look inside and we'll see how the system works in the top structure. So we've got the two squat plates here. You could have two sit-down toilets. We'll show you what one looks like. We have one here on the farm. So it's very simple. Instead of a squat plate, we've got this plywood box structure. And, you know, obviously the hole in the base of the toilet has to be a lot bigger to accommodate it. And to stop it from leaking air, we've put a sealable lid. So if I lift it up, you can see there is a toilet seat. And the seat is covered by this door with some rubber seals here to prevent the air escaping from the toilet. And we've got a nice angle to it so we don't get urine and humanure on the side of the box. And yeah, it works very well. It's very simple, elegant, and it's good for people who can't squat. The vent pipe is at the back, in the middle of the bin. It can be in the middle of the bin if you want, as long as it's at the back, away from the door. And the opening to the bins is the back, and we have the chimneys coming out the floor up through the roof. All right, it's nice and aerated, so it's never smelly. And it's very important when you use this toilet to add sawdust to it, because that provides your carboniferous material. It mustn't be a thick, mulchy type stuff. Sawdust is best. So when you finish on the toilet, you just put a handful of sawdust in, and that helps buffer the nitrogen and it keeps the balance between carbon and nitrogen in the humanure decomposing process more or less ideal. Right, so as I said, you can use anything at the top depending on your budget and what you're going for aesthetically and your climate zone, but it's very simple. And the squat plate is metal with a handle, and then what we do is we put a rubber seal, so when you close the plate, it sits nicely over the hole, and there's no way air can come out, because the only reason a compost toilet will smell is if the toilet component is not sealed and the air is pulling through here, and therefore doesn't go through the heap with enough vigor, doesn't penetrate the heap, and then the heap becomes anaerobic, and that's when it starts to smell. So if you're smelling, your compost toilet is smelling, you haven't got the design right. The aerobic compost toilet will not smell, all right, because the only way the air can get through from the base and out is via the vent pipe. Once you've filled the bin, then what I find I need to do now and then is to come in while it's decomposing and just add a bit of water to keep it moist so it decomposes properly. It does depend on your climate, but here, because it's dry and there's always an air draft going through, it can dry out. So you just need to be aware of that. And then once, after about 6 months, we take out the manure and we take it to the worm farm for further decomposing. So nearby the compost toilet we have some worm farms, and we basically just take the manure out and put it into the worm farm, and then the worms will decompose it further. This particular heap doesn't have any compost toilet material in because it's been a while since we emptied that one, but it will break it down to fertilous worm compost. You won't even know the difference, and it goes into the garden. And so you're getting, roughly speaking, about depending on how many people use it, a cube of manure a year from your compost toilet. And so you're recycling all your manure back into the gardens, and the plants are taking up that and they're growing healthily. And if you're in an urban area, you have your own sustainable source of compost material, and there develops a relationship between your plants that grow in your manure and you, and it actually creates a evolutionary dynamic where the plants over time constantly grow, and your humanure adapt to your gut bacterial needs. And so there's another angle to that. I'm not going to get into that in too much detail, but it's one of the advantages of these toilet systems. And so it's extremely simple, elegant. It cannot pollute the groundwater. It's cheap to build, provides a constant source of compost for the garden. Doesn't smell. It doesn't require you to engage with the manure like many other composting toilet systems. You just use it until the bin is full. You let the bin decompose and take it out and use it, or if you wish to decompose it a bit further, because we find that there's still a bit of residue from the sawdust, put it in a worm farm. It's 100% safe. There's no pathogens. It doesn't contaminate the groundwater supply, doesn't smell. So it really is a win-win situation. It embodies the permaculture principle of produce no waste. Alright, so here's a base of a compost toilet we're busy building, and we're going to go through the process of how we built it, so just what to do. And it's still work in progress. We've still got to build the top structure, but inside you can see what it looks like. So you can see there's the French drain. It's made out of cement brick. You can use normal brick, you can use stone. We'll get into that in the build. And this is basically the essence of what it makes work. And if you get this right, then you've got an excellent lifelong humanure processing system that produces an endless supply of compost for the gardens. Okay, so we're going to take a look at the materials needed to build the walls of the bin. And it's very simple. So what we use are cement bricks. They're totally adequate. So, we work with the metric system in South Africa, so I'm going to give you the metric measurements. So these are 370 mils long, so 37 centimeters. Let's get a better view. They are 140 centimeters wide, and they are 140 centimeters high. Okay, so you get 3 different types of breeze block. You get they're all 370 long and 140 high, and they vary in thickness. So the thickest is a 190. These are 140. Okay, so they for the outside walls. Then for the inner wall, that one that separates the 2 bins, we use a thinner block. All right, and so this one is a 90 by 370 by 140. Okay, and we use 20 to build the wall. That's all we need. 20 to build the wall, the inner wall between the bins. And we use 80 of these 140 wide ones. So it's not a lot of bricks actually. As you can see, it's quite a small pile, yeah, stacked. And then we will use brick force to reinforce the walls as we build. That's a 75mm wide brick force roll. And then we have 2 lintels. All right, here they are. And they are 2.7 meters long, 270 centimeters. And they are 110 wide. All right. And I think they're 90 high, or 75 high. I'll tell you now. Yeah, they're 75 centimeters high. 110 wide, just like a normal brick. Normal clay brick, fine clay brick. And 270 centimeters long. And these lintels go in at the base of the bins and at the top of the bins where we cast the floor of the bins. We'll look at that separately when we get there. Okay, so that's basically what we need. And then 6 bags of cement does the trick for building the entire base of the compost toilet. Okay, and then we just use building sand for the brick lane, and we use river sand, which we get out of the river, like a gravel mix for the foundation. So it's not really that much, it doesn't cost that much either. Okay, so what we're going to do now is look at the first stage of the construction of this compost toilet. So this compost toilet is going to be 1.5 meters wide and 2.8 meters long, and we have to build appropriate foundations. So in this instance, because the compost toilet's not very heavy, we've got a cement brick base, the cement floor, and we're going to have a wooden top structure. So very much like the compost toilet we looked at in the beginning of the video. But it's going to be just slightly smaller because the volume of usage is going to be a little bit less, but basically each bin is going to have a cube of space. So the foundations are laid 30 centimeters deep and just ever so slightly wider than the cement bricks that we're going to use. And so it's a concrete mix with rock and reinforcing wire in. And once we cast the foundation, we then dug out into the ground where the 2 bins are going to be down to 20 centimeters, all right? So there are 2 20 centimeter holes here, all right? The size of the bin. And then what we're going to do before we start building the wall is we're going to fill these 2 holes with gravel, all right? And what it will become are 2 soak away pits, which are going to soak away any urine that gets through the layer of straw that we put on top of the wire, the bread crate shade cloth base, all right? So that there's no leakage of urine out of the compost toilet in the initial stages of use until the pile of humanure gets large enough to absorb all the urine, and that urine provides a constant source of nitrogen to feed the aerobic composting process going down in the bin. Alright, so we're going to fill, the next phase is going to be filling these 2 holes here with gravel. So they will effectively be 2 small French drains. Okay, so the holes have now been filled with gravel, and we're ready to go for the walls. So we've got basically 2 French drains here, soakaways for the urine, and now the walls are going to be built up around that. And then yeah, then we're going to have a system above, sitting above the gravel, that will keep the humanure off the gravel. So like a rack system, but we'll get into that in more detail when we get there. Alright, so the walls of the base are constructed now, so they're finished, and this is basically the most important part of the compost toilet to get correct. So you can see we've got 2 bins here now that have been constructed. So each bin is basically, in this toilet, which is basically about as small as you can get, is 125 centimeters by 125 centimeters. Alright, basically squared off, and then from the French drain at the bottom, see the French drain sits basically at the bottom and it covers the entirety of the bin. It is 1 meter, the walls are 1 meter high. So you've basically got a cube roughly, and then you can see the lintels have been placed. The bottom lintel, which is just 280 centimeters long, has been placed basically the height of a normal brick off the foundation. So the first row of cement bricks which I put in, are then cut in half roughly, and the lintel is put on top. And so the lintel is level with the first row of bricks. The first row of bricks, the lintel is level with it all the way. And this creates the ventilation gap under the toilet to pull in the air that is going to aerate the manure heap and keep it decomposing as a hot compost heap, as an aerobic compost heap. So that gap is really important to have. Okay, and then on top of the lintel, the door of the compost toilet, which we will get into at the end, fits in. The top lintel is cut into the top row of cement bricks. And so the entire thing is not very big. It's basically, let's call it roughly 1.5 by 3. So we've already plastered the walls. The walls have to be plastered, which just helps to seal them off because they're cement brick, and it creates a smooth surface on the inside so that the humanure doesn't cling to the walls. It's easy to get out. Alright, you can use normal bricks, you can't use clay. Cannot use clay, it will get damp because this area is where it's composing is moist and humid, and a lot of urea is going in. You could use stone, alright, but you've got to have the smooth finish. And you'll see the middle wall is a bit thinner. And now the next stage is to get the forms in that are going to hold the floor. Okay, because we're going to cast the floor on top, and the forms are going to go around the edge so we can pour the cement in, and we're also going to place the other elements that we need in the toilet, the actual toilet seat structure and the air pipe structures, but we'll get into that in the next stage. Alright, so the wooden forms have been put in now onto the base to allow us to cast the slab for the floor of the toilet. Alright, and it's a very straightforward process involving making 2 wooden platforms, okay, the size of the top of the bins, You see, alright, they fit into the top of the bins, and they're supported by a network of temporary struts underneath to hold them up and to carry the weight of the cement that gets put on top of them. Okay, then what we do is we make a box to the size of the squat plate hole, so that the cement forms around it, and we can pull the box out and we've got the hole down into the toilet bin. Okay, and then we put the chimney joiners. These are they're like a joiner to join two of the PVC pipes together, and these are 110 millimeter pipe joiners, and they go in the back corner of each bin. They have to be at the back because you must understand that the chimneys are going to draw in air underneath the manure pile through the gap. Okay, now if they are in the front, they're going to draw the air straight up the front and not through the pile of manure, so they have to be at the back, alright, to draw it right the way through. And we're going to make a 7 centimeter thick slab. We don't have to go thicker than that, it's unnecessary. I've made a lot of these toilets and they've never cracked or collapsed. Okay, so we'll lay the half the layer of cement down right the way through. We put the plastic on top to stop the cement going through the gaps in the wood. We can take it out afterwards from underneath, and then we'll put a weld mesh reinforcing structure on top of the cement, and we'll cast the second half all in one go, and then it's very, very solid. And then around the sides we just brace planking. Okay, so the planking must be higher than the cement floor, and that's going to stop the cement falling over the side and hold it in. Okay, so the floor of the bin, the toilet bins on this compost toilet, been casted. It's very rough because we're going to tile over it, so we're not going for a smooth finish. Alright, so the floor turned out to be about 8 centimeters thick, and it's a 1 in 4 concrete mix using river gravel. And then we have put in the thread bar. We put it in with the floor when we cast it, which is what we're going to put the wooden frame over. So we're going to put the wooden purlon based frame, and we're going to build a wooden structure like the completed compost toilet we looked at in the start of the video. So yeah, tomorrow we'll take off the forms, and then the base will basically be done. And then the next stage is going to be building the top of this unit, which we're not going to show in the video. It's not necessary because there's a wide range of tops. You can do brick tops, you can do corrugated iron, wooden frame tops, wooden frame, wood clad, which is what we're going to go for. And then once that's built, we'll be putting in the topping of the floor, which will most likely be tile, or else we'll just do a cement topping. And then once that's done, then we finish off the base. Alright, the forms have been taken out, and we've got the bare main frame of the compost toilet bins. You can see now how they're supposed to be. The squat holes are in place. Now we just put the plates in. The joiners to add the vent pipes are in the back corner of each bin where they're going to be out the way. And this opening is just a little bit, yeah, it's 30 centimeters by 60. And now it's just about putting in the bread crates with the shade net in to suspend the manure pile off the base of the French drain, to put a form in there with netting to stop flies going in, still allow the air under. We're going to be using new tech doors, nice and light, so what we'll do is we'll just put some battens on the side there to hold the door in so it doesn't collapse in when we push it in, and we just cement it lightly closed so it's nice and sealed. And then whatever top you choose you can put on, brick, cob, corrugated iron, wooden iron, wood, whatever. That's not important. The important part is to get this base properly built and constructed to the right dimensions so that it functions effectively and decomposes the humanure without any smells in a sanitary way that closes it off from the surrounding environment. And then after about a year and a half of a family of 4 using, the one bin will be full, and you can then shut it off for half a year for it to finish decomposing. You can also add composting worms in, but you have to just keep it moist because it dries out quite quickly. And then you move to the next one, and so it goes. So it's very easy maintenance. There's no interaction with the manure pile at all other than when it's ready to be taken out and it is decomposed, and it can go straight into the garden.